In the beginning, psychology resorted to animal experiments. Psychology wanted to be a science, and psychologists understood that, to do so, they had to start with the basics. They also understood that, in the basics, we resemble animals. Therefore, they thought that animal studies would allow them to know the basic principles on which to establish the laws of psychology, the laws that determine human behavior. Later they found that in some ways we resemble animals, and in others, we don't. In some things we are like animals, and in others, we are much worse. In 1967, Martin Seligman carried out an experiment on dogs that today would have been denounced by animal welfare associations. He restrained several of them with harnesses and subjected them to electric shocks. Some were able to avoid the shock by pulling a lever. Others, however, received the shock regardless of whether or not they pulled the lever. The first learned that their behavior could avoid punishment. The latter learned that the punishment was independent of their behavior. He then placed the dogs in compartments where they were shocked again. To avoid them, this time, they had to jump to the next compartment. All dogs had the possibility of avoiding the shocks by means of a response that, in this second phase of the experiment, was different from that required in the first. Seligman observed how the dogs that had learned to avoid shocks, after trying different possibilities, took safety in the corresponding space. On the contrary, the others received the punishment passively. That is, dogs that were taught that they were going to receive a shock in any case, did absolutely nothing to avoid it. Seligman referred to this phenomenon as learned helplessness. The dog learned that it was helpless in the face of punishment, and therefore, it did nothing to avoid it. Furthermore, he established a series of parallels between this phenomenon and depression in humans. Many people become depressed because they are mistreated by life, and they perceive that they cannot do anything to solve their problems. So, they adopt a passive attitude. Why am I going to do anything if I have no control over the circumstances? Why act if my actions are not going to change the course of events? This is how those who are going through depression reason. Some do not even get out of bed in the morning. This obviously does not help to solve the problem. In the years following the 1967 experiment, different researchers, including Seligman himself, applied it to human beings, modifying and adapting, logically, the experimental conditions. The results were not exactly the same, and did not allow the same conclusions to be drawn. Some people behaved, in effect, like dogs. Others, however, were not affected by adverse circumstances. And others even grew in the face of adversity. This happens, in essence, because a human being is not a dog. The human being has something that the dog does not have, and that psychologists call locus of control. The locus of control is a personality trait that determines one's attributional style. That is, to what extent one assumes responsibility for what happens to him or her. Or, on the contrary, blame the circumstances. People who have an internal locus of control consider that what happens depends, to a large extent, on themselves. They are people who value effort, their own abilities and individual responsibility. On the other hand, those who have an external locus of control perceive events as a product of destiny, chance, or luck, and not as much as a product of what they do. The latter are the ones that behave the same as the dogs in the experiment. Although not everyone has an internal locus of control, there are some things you can do to develop it. Here are some tips. 1. Conscious self-assessment. Reflect on how you perceive your ability to influence your own life. Spend some time on it. Identify the situations in which you have more control and those in which you have less. Becoming aware of the situations in which you feel most vulnerable helps you identify your areas for improvement. 2. Set clear and realistic goals. Set clear, concrete, realistic and achievable goals. If possible, also quantifiable. This will allow you to guide your progress in a certain direction. Dividing big goals into smaller steps helps you feel more capable of achieving what you set out to do. 3. Accept your responsibility. This is the essence of the internal locus of control. Recognizing that you are responsible for your decisions and actions is decisive. This means stopping blaming others or external circumstances for your results. Furthermore, taking responsibility motivates you to make positive changes and learn from your mistakes. 4. Learn from failures. Master Funakoshi used to tell his disciples that you learn more from a defeat than from a victory. The thing is that no one likes to lose, and changing the perception of failure is not easy. Failure can be an opportunity to grow, but only if we want to see it that way. Only from a constructive perspective in the face of failure is it possible to reinforce the sense of control. Be humble, reflect on what you have done wrong, and change what is necessary so that everything goes better in the future. 5. Take care of your internal language. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. Avoid self-disqualification or negative thoughts that undermine your confidence. Attitude is the inner voice. It can help you or hurt you. Replace negative affirmations with positive and encouraging ones. For example, instead of telling yourself, "I can't do it," replace this statement with, "I can learn to do it if I set my mind to it." Mechanical repetition is not worth it. You have to believe it. 6. Develop diverse skills and competencies. Learn different trades. The advice is from Miyamoto Musashi, a famous warrior from feudal Japan. Someone who only knows how to handle the sword may find himself in difficulties in times of peace. Hence, the importance of cultivating other skills. Miyamoto didn't do badly. He died of old age, unusual for a 16th century samurai. Invest in your personal and professional development. Learn new skills and improve your competencies. The more empowered you feel in different areas of your life, the more confident you will be in your ability to face challenges and overcome obstacles. 7. Seek support from others. You should seek the support of others in the form of positive influence, not approval. Cultivate relationships that contribute to your improvement and growth. Surround yourself with people with whom you share goals and concerns, so that you can benefit from their experience and knowledge. The sense of connection with such people has a very beneficial effect on your evolution. 8. Practice mindfulness. I know this is recommended nowadays for everything, but mindfulness certainly helps you to manage stress better, to stay calm in difficult situations, and to have more control over your emotions and thoughts. All this strengthens the internal locus of control. So, incorporate mindfulness and meditation techniques into your daily routine. Something simple and that doesn't take much time. 9. Celebrate your achievements. Recognize and value your successes, no matter how small. This reinforces your self-confidence to achieve goals, motivates you and improves your self-esteem. In short, it strengthens the sense of control over your results. 10. Practice responsibility and acceptance. Do what you must, and take what comes. It is a phrase from Epictetus that captures the essence of Stoic philosophy. Taking responsibility does not mean controlling everything. It is necessary to understand that there are external circumstances beyond our control. It is important to distinguish between what depends on us and what does not. In the former, we must take responsibility and act accordingly. On the latter, we need to practice acceptance and adapt to what is there. The former implies firmness. The second, flexibility. By putting these tips into practice consistently, you will gradually strengthen your internal locus of control. It is a process of continuous personal development, which requires patience and perseverance. People with an internal locus of control are not only less prone to depression, they are also happier. The Spanish philosopher José Antonio Marina relates happiness to the feeling of control over our own life. The perception that we are in control of our destiny makes us happy. Conversely, the feeling that we are in the hands of chance leads us to uncertainty and, ultimately, to dissatisfaction. Finally, remember that you are not a dog, and life is not an experiment manipulated by a psychologist. You are a human being with the capacity to decide on your destiny. And everything in life happens for a reason. God does not play dice with the universe, said a scientist. Albert Einstein.